Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to the public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2017 Easthampton School District budget. We will have a review of the budget, and then if there are questions and comments and people want to come up and speak on any of the matters that we discuss, we'll let you do that. But first we'll have a brief presentation and overview. And Cynthia, can I ask that you take us through that?
Sure.
Thank you.
The Finance Subcommittee met on 3 working sessions, February 16th, February 22nd, and March 8th. We worked with Superintendent Follansbee and Dale, and a number of the school committee members were able to attend even though they were not on the subcommittee and did not have to attend. We were grateful for their attendance. We looked at the budget in 3 stages. The first was to review the needs for Center Pepin, Maple Street, and Whitebrook. And then on the 22nd, we looked at the high school, special ed, and the systems budget. And then March 8th, we looked at the entire budget and discussed the various ways in which this budget that we were looking at and developing was different from last year's, and the areas of concern that would be addressed and taken care of. And then we voted to bring it here to discuss tonight as a full committee.
Thank you. And Superintendent Follansbee, are there key points in this that you'd like to highlight?
There are. I'm going to start by walking through a few of the tabs of the proposed budget, and then my Director of Business Services, Dale Doran, will finish the presentation on the proposed budget. So I'm going to start with the first tab. For those of you at home who are watching, you can follow along with the budget documents by going to our website, www.epsd.us, and clicking on District at the top of the page, and then clicking on Budget, and then opening the link for FY 2017 proposed budget. The first tab is the foundation, and it contains the mission statement and core values. The first page of our budget is the district mission statement and core values, and the mission statement and core values guide the work we do in the district, including the development of our budget. The next page is the strategic plan. The strategic plan was developed in alignment with our mission statement and core values, and our strategic plan, revised in 2014, is the district's 3-year improvement plan. It has guided the work we do to provide a strong educational program and to improve student performance. Every request in the school's proposed budget is linked to an initiative in the strategic plan. The next document in tab 1 is a document that shows enrollment data for our district. And the enrollment data, if you're looking at this document, you can see that our overall enrollment has been increasing since 2014. It might be noted here that our enrollment is increasing at the same time enrollments in many districts in Western Massachusetts are decreasing. So we're pleased to see that information. In tab 2, we have information about charter schools, school choice, and vocational tuitions. The first chart on this page shows a history of the funds that leave the district through choice and charter programs, and the funds that come to the district from students who use choice to join our district. As you can see from the chart, there's been a downward trend since 2012 in the number of students who choice out to other districts, and a trend upward in students who choice into our district. You will also notice that the number of students who leave our district to attend charter schools has increased, with a substantial increase since Hilltown Charter moved to Easthampton. During the regular session of the school committee, I will provide a more in-depth update on choice and charter data. You can also see in the lower chart on this page the information about vocational student tuition data. Our students attend Smith Vocational School in Northampton, and they also attend Career Tech in West Springfield. And you can see the trends in students attending those vocational opportunities. Smith Vocational is a full-time program, and Career Tech is a program that allows our students to be in our high school for part of the day for their academics, and then to the vocational school for their vocational choice. The next page is about our recent budget trends. And this outlines the trends in the school department budget starting in 2009 with a reduction in funding which necessitated the elimination of a number of positions. But I'm pleased to report this year that it appears we have turned a corner, and I would like to read a paragraph from our trend report, the second paragraph. The FY17 requested budget, if fully funded, suggests that the corner has been turned and the school department has entered a period of growth. Besides funding all services and programs deemed at the requisite level, the budget adds 5.5 FTE positions. These positions will deliver services and priorities and programs prioritized by the leadership team, and will offer Easthampton students important learning opportunities, support all students' academic success, and retain Easthampton families in an era where choice in public education is abundant in our area. It is a budget that builds upon the impressive array of programs and services already in place and will undoubtedly enhance learning opportunities for children. Furthermore, we believe that the rate of budget growth represented by the requested budget is both sustainable over time and also strikes the appropriate balance between educational excellence and fiscal responsibility. The next page shows our essential services budget, and it contains a pie chart that shows the budget broken out into the categories we report to the state. As you can see, the largest percentage of the budget is for instructional services, the teachers who educate our students, our children. And in tab 3, we have a district-generated revenue bar graph. And this depicts the revenue sources available to the school department, including school choice, circuit breaker, which is funding from the state for special education, revolving accounts, which are tuitions and fees and federal and state grants. You will notice that the choice revenues have decreased over time as it has become necessary to use these funds to balance our budget. And the following page is a description of the various grants that we use in our district to help support programs and services. The majority of these grants cannot be used for salaries, but can be used for professional development and, as I said, for support of our programs and services. I'm now going to ask Dale Doran, our Director of Business Services, to come to the podium, and she will talk about the documents that are in tab 4, and then Dale and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Good evening. So I thought that I'd start by talking a little bit about the leadership team's process in drafting this budget, just briefly. We started very early. We started right at the very beginning of the school year and had been working on it steadily through the present time. The kinds of activities that we engaged in were really getting to know our needs and our history, our budget history, very well. We spent a lot of time all year this year trying to align our funding categories tightly with our spending needs. The budget was somewhat out of alignment in terms of where funding was in budget lines relative to our anticipated spending needs for next year. So getting that in alignment was very important. We spent a good deal of time talking about what we believe is essential in a school budget and what our priorities are. And as Nancy mentioned, all of those priorities tie back to the district's strategic plan and improvement plan. talked a lot about fostering a sense of shared responsibility for the budget. We all own all the children, regardless of where we work, in central office or one of the schools. And also the importance of all of us having a role in both monitoring and managing the budget on an ongoing basis. We worked very hard to simplify the budget structure and documentation in this presentation for a couple of different reasons. One of which is so that it's clear and transparent for the public and for our school committee and for anybody who's looking at the budget. But in simplifying structure and documentation, it also helps us be better managers of the budget because we understand it easily upon looking at it. So those were the two reasons we spent some time on that. We really take our responsibility of being good stewards of public funds seriously, and that's a way to do that, is to make it clear and transparent to everybody involved in it. And then the other thing we've been engaged in since the beginning of the year is actively pursuing efficiencies, looking for savings. And I think we did a very good job in finding savings a number of different ways. We've renegotiated a number of our service contracts over this year to realize savings. The new special education administrator, Sarah Mochek, has done a really good job looking at special education, figuring out how to serve students better locally. In so doing, oftentimes finding savings. And those are the two major ways that we did it. A couple of things I want to say about this budget is that it's our best guess of where we need the money for next year, but we're well in advance of knowing that for sure. Enrollments will shift up until the very opening of the day, opening day of school. There still remains a number of unknowns relative to the budget. State funding is not decided yet, will likely not be decided until June. Grant funding, which makes up almost $1 million of the revenue for this budget, has not been decided and probably will not be till June. So one of the balances we try to strike in constructing the budget is provisioning for what we don't know, because there will be surprises without a doubt, it always happens, and balancing that with fiscal responsibility, trying to keep a budget that's reasonable in terms of asking the taxpayers to pay for it. So the budget you have before you is an essential services budget. And specifically what I mean by essential services is that it includes all personnel, programs, and services necessary to serve the children we know now will be enrolled next fall. And as opposed to a level service budget, we didn't simply seek to replicate the services that are in place this year. We rather try to look at what we needed to serve students well, to make sure that all Easthampton students are ensured a high-quality education next year. So in some cases, budget lines went down. We were able to reduce them and shift that money elsewhere. In some, it needed to go up. And in some budget lines, it stayed the same. We really try to align it very tightly with what we thought was essential for serving students well next year. It is increased 2.01% overall, as opposed to the fiscal year 16 budget. That's a little over $326,000 increase. It adds 5.5, as Nancy mentioned, 5.5 full-time equivalencies. There is a new second grade teacher at Center Pepin School. If you look at the enrollment next year, you'll see there is a little bubble of increased enrollment at second grade. And in order to keep class sizes reasonable, to serve children well at those very young ages, where it's important to have reasonable class sizes, we add a second grade teacher at Center Pepin next year. We add a speech and language pathologist assistant at Center Pepin, a world language teacher, and a half-time reading specialist at Whitebrook, and a design technology teacher at Easthampton High School. And then the final position is a board-certified behavior analyst to be shared throughout the district. That's somebody that will work in all schools with students who have high behavioral needs and the support of a behavioral analyst. I want to point out that when we turn the page, we're going to look at the increase or decrease at each location budget. That's another change in the budget as opposed to how it's been structured when it's come to you in the past. It used to be organized by DESE function code, and we organized it this year by location. So you'll see there's the system budget, which is all of the district costs that are shared throughout the district. Then there is a budget for Center Pepin, one for Maple, one for Whitebrook, and one for Easthampton, one for each of the schools. And then finally a special ed budget. We thought that that framework made it more transparent and easily understood. If you turn the page, you'll see there's a summary sheet that talks about the increase and decrease by each budget location. And I want to highlight the two locations that on paper have reductions for next year, Maple and Special Ed. They both show reductions of over 1% as compared to last year. I really wanted to stress very strongly that that is not because there's a reduction in staffing, services, or programs at those schools. It really is attributable to aligning the funding correctly. In previous budgets, staff that worked in more than one school were sometimes budgeted in one school, and we've apportioned out the salary so it shows up in both locations. So it's about aligning the funding rather than reducing anything. And I think that's all that I wanted to say. Following the summary sheet, you have each location budget with all of the detail. District first, then each of the schools in alphabetical order, and special ed at the very back. I'm not going to take the time to go through these in any great detail, but am happy to answer any questions that folks might have about what I presented, or any questions they had from the material that is more detailed.
Well, I'll say this at the start and then I'll repeat it at the end. In terms of the process and the presentation of the information, this format is the process of the review and preparation for the budget, and the process of reading what's in the budget now is, from my perspective, having looked at them in the past over the last decade, this is a significant improvement, and I thank you for that. But are there specific questions from anyone on the committee about any of the information that the chair of the finance subcommittee or the superintendent or the director of business services has provided? Okay, so I've got a question for you, sorry.
That's okay.
I was looking at the numbers. This goes all the way back to the section that Nancy read over, and Superintendent Follansbee, you may prefer to answer this. First, I was looking at the vocational school tuition data that's right at the beginning of tab 2. And it just, for the benefit of people in the community to understand the impact of the costs at Smith, because you could look at the costs and think that we have a dramatic increase in the number of students attending the program there or at C-Tech, but in fact, the cost at C-Tech, if you see the numbers, right, have actually gone down. The cost has gone up a tiny bit. The cost at Smith, the number of students attending the Smith program is level. FY 2014 through FY 2016, the cost has gone up by $350,000, right? Virtually the same number of students, 49, 48, 49, going from $570,000 to $923,000. And that's a fee that's set outside our control entirely, right? So that's just the result of an increased fee that's imposed on us to provide that education out of district, correct?
It's, this is my first year in the district, but my understanding of that is it's a function of the increase in the tuition that Easthampton has charged for the students that attend Smith over the last 3 years.
And that's set by the state. The tuition amount is set by the state. However, this year, interestingly enough, the tuition amount set by the state is lower than it was last year. However, by a few $100s, as I recall. However, Smith has submitted a waiver to the state to keep their tuition at the level that it was last year. So, again, Dale was talking about some of the things that will change between now and when we actually finish our budget, and that may be one of them.
Yeah, I guess then I would just finish with the comment that I think voters in the city would be wise to look at that and to understand the impact. The exact same number of students cost $350,000. That's, I'm doing this back of the envelope in math, but that's better than a 50% increase in the cost of educating those folks over that period of time. And the second piece that I would just draw folks' attention to in terms of cost out is the extraordinary increase which we predicted. We were told that this was not the intention of the movement of a charter school into a charter school built on rural values, moving into an industrial park. That the intention was not to draw additional students out of the existing public school system, but it's had exactly that effect. There were 51, 58, 60 students in charter out. The number has gone up again by better than 50% over the last 2 fiscal years. And if I read the statistics right, I know we're going to talk about this later, 80% of that has been going to the industrial park charter school, the Hilltown charter school in Easthampton, correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here who has any questions, would like to make a comment, get clarification?
If it's all right, I would just like to make a comment. I would like to express my sincere thanks and appreciations to Dale Dorian and to the Finance Subcommittee for all the work that they've done on this year's budget. And this process, I agree, is it's refreshing. And I know how many, you had 3 long meetings that went into it, but the whole purpose itself and the whole process itself, I found it just very open, and I know some of the other members of the school committee also attended, but it's just refreshing to do things this way. So I thank you for the time and effort you put into it.
And I can just say that I enjoyed it because it was clear, it was concise. As a new member of the committee, it was easy to understand and see the differences, and Dale did an excellent job taking us through the realignment of staff and where we were reapportioning those funds. It was a really nice process.
And I agree with the realignment. It's just a much easier way to see things, keep things in tab, see where you are throughout the year. And also, I was at the first meeting where Dale had explained his budget. This, it is not a simple process at all. And the way she explained it was almost as if it was self-explanatory. So again, I want to thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you, and I would just add, for the benefit of the public, tonight you'll see us have a deliberation and then a vote on the budget. The meetings that were described are open to the public, and I would encourage members of the public to come and attend. There was a vigorous exchange of ideas and views about how the city is investing its precious resources. We're well aware that the tax dollars of the citizens of this city need to be put to good use, and we had a full, frank discussion with a lot of back and forth, and we know that there will be yet further evolution as more of the information becomes clear. about various items that are contained within parts of the budget, but it's really important for people in the community to know that this 3-meeting sequence, 3+ meetings actually, when you think of the length of the time that they were, really was a pretty exhaustive vetting of the material that we're now about to vote on. So, unless there...
Can I just add that the positions that we have added back in are really crucial to the health and the growth of the district. We're talking about a 2nd grade teaching position for an increase in population. So that's so critical to early childhood learning. We are talking about a world language position and a board-certified behavioral analyst. Those are all positions that are really critical to running a healthy district. So looking at the addition, I just see this budget as an example of growth and health in our school system.
And everyone working together.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll entertain a motion.
I move that we vote in favor of this budget.
I second.
We have a recommendation to endorse the fiscal year 2017 proposed budget. It has been seconded. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We can do it that way, right? We don't have to do a roll call. Thank you very much. We will then close, adjourn the public hearing on the budget, and we'll stay right here. Don't go anywhere, viewers at home, because we will move into regular session to discuss the items that are on this week's agenda. Anything else that may properly come before us. I'm going to shift their paper so they have the right things in front of them. Okay. So, welcome to the March 22nd, 2016 regular meeting of the Easthampton School Committee. This meeting is being recorded by Easthampton Media. Easthampton Media channels 191, 192, 193 are always looking for volunteers. If anyone is interested, I'm sure Tim would appreciate the help. We thank Tim for his continued good work on behalf of sharing what we're working on with the broader community. But if anyone's interested in helping to tape city government meetings, please contact Kathy Lynch. The phone number is 413-203-1360. I think you have the next set of
Some
announcements.
announcements. That's good.
There you
Thank you. The next regular school committee meetings are April 12th, April 26th, May 10th, June 14th, and June 28th, 2016. There's no school on Friday, March 25th, due to Good Friday. There's no school April 18th to 22nd due to Patriots' Day and spring break. There's a half day of school on Friday, May 6th due to teacher professional development. There is no school on Monday, May 30th due to Memorial Day. The last day of school is currently scheduled for Monday, June 20th, 2016. Looks like that will be our day. Kelly Brown of Easthampton High School has received the Don Salvucci Award for Excellence in Promoting Civics Education. The As Schools Match Wits High School team has made it to the playoffs. The championship will be held April 9th and 10th. And Easthampton High School online registration begins March 28th.
Terrific. Thank you. Do we have correspondence?
We do have several items of correspondence. First, in reference to the award that the superintendent just referenced, we have correspondence from the Massachusetts Council for the Social Studies about Kelly Brown's award, the Don Salvucci Award for Excellence in Promoting Civics Education. This award is presented annually to one educator in Massachusetts who has demonstrated exceptional ability, So on behalf of the school committee, congratulations to Kelly Brown. It's really wonderful for both our students and that our teachers are getting recognition for the great work that they're doing. And we have, as a committee, been invited to the award presentation at the Northeast Regional Conference on Social Studies on Monday, April 4th at the Sturbridge Host Hotel and Conference Center in Sturbridge, Massachusetts at 6:30 p.m. Our second item of correspondence, we want to recognize receipt of an email from Easthampton resident, Mr. A.J. Weirnaz, concerning the lighting on the playground at Maple School. And our chairperson, Deborah Luznia, has corresponded with Mr. Weirnaz on this matter.
Could you repeat that please a little bit louder?
Yes. We have received email correspondence from an Easthampton resident, A.J. Weirnaz, I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, regarding the lighting on the playground at Maple School. This is lighting that was recently installed in order to create safety and a well-lit space in the evenings in the playground and parking lot area at Maple School. And our chairperson, Deborah Luznia, has responded to Mr. Weirnaz on this account. Should I mention anything else on that? Okay. And our third piece of correspondence comes from Mr. Thomas Backus and Mrs. Shelley Backus regarding the Easthampton High School's scheduling of honors courses.
Thank you. And we, by the way, I, again, was at a professional development opportunity working with Kelly just last weekend, and when the announcement was shared with a group of civics teachers from the western region of the state, and everything that you said is true. She's held in extraordinarily high regard and recognized by people, not just in Massachusetts, throughout. And I just got correspondence the other day from a leading civic educator in Rhode Island who was complimenting her on her good work as well. So we have gifts to report, yes?
We do. We would like to please vote to accept with gratitude and appreciation the following gifts from Florence Savings Bank, $100 to the Model UN.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. And thank you to Florence Savings Bank for that. The Model UN is that exclusively at the high school?
Yes.
Right. Great, thank you.
High school program.
We now turn to the portion of the meeting where there's an opportunity for members of the public to speak on any item that's on the agenda or anything else that they would like to bring to our attention. We ask that if you do want to address an issue or share information with the committee, that you come here to the podium. If you would just share your name and your residence in the town. And we ask that folks limit their remarks, at least in the first round, to 2 to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who'd like to speak this evening? Please do, sir.
Hello, everyone. My name is A.J. Wernes. I'm the person that corresponded with you all about the lights. Is there anybody who knows me or knows of me? Okay. All right. So I'm a lifelong resident of the city, so it goes back to when it was a town, and the floodlights are basically aggravating. So I didn't hear back from you, and I was wondering if there's any other feedback that I can get as to why I appreciate, Mr. Gunn, I appreciate your twice having made the attempt to adjust them.
No, I didn't make the attempt to adjust them. I know that I share a first name with our
Mr. Roy.
Mr. Roy, and I think he has twice made the effort to make adjustments. The correspondence that Marissa referred to was dated in February. That's what we've put into the record tonight. We have correspondence from you in the first week of February, and then the response from the chair, who can't be here this evening, unfortunately, Ms. Luznia.
All right, but I was just wondering if there's a reason given for not being able to make this, because I was requesting that there be a shield put on them, and I contacted Hamden Zimmerman Electric Supplies in Northampton.
Right.
They said that there are indeed such items that you can get that just affixed to the thing, and they come down over the top of the lights like something like a baseball
Like a
cap.
baseball cap.
So I didn't think it was a huge endeavor, and I was just wondering if there was any reason why that was.
My understanding, and I certainly will let the superintendent speak to this, but my understanding is that Mr. Roy did investigate the possibility, and that it was his determination that the baseball cap style lid prevented the light from accomplishing the mission that led to the installation of them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That is, that they would have the effect of alleviating your concern, but they would reduce the lighting in the areas that were of concern to us and to city officials.
Now, is that something that you know, or something that is? Do we know that Mr. Roy? Do we know that he indeed investigated the shield?
That's my understanding. Yes.
Yes, he did investigate putting a shield on that light.
Right. Because, but then what? Well, I guess I would need to talk to him about because nobody here knows the specifics about the effect of the shield on because it would seem to me that if you put a shield on lights, that it would diffuse the light so that it would shine more brightly downward if it were a cap type shield. And as far as there's a parameter between Maple Street School yard and my yard, and it would seem to me that if we had a shield that came down, it would serve the function that I'm asking for, is to draw a line, a shade line between the schoolyard lighting and my yard.
So we do have your email address, and we certainly can share that with Mr. Roy,
Right.
and then he can get in touch with you, and you can have a further conversation with him.
What authority does Mr. Roy have to act? Does he have to come back to the board? Or can
He would come back to me. He's our director of maintenance, so he's in charge, or actually probably he would come to Dale Doran, who's our director of business services and oversees all of our facilities.
Yeah.
So he would be the one who would have investigated this and looked into what you suggested. So I think he would be the one to best answer your questions.
Sure, but I'm trying to find out about his authority. Dale Doran, did you say?
Is our director of business services.
Yeah. Now, would she be the one who would grant him the authority to go ahead and apply such a shield?
No, that would ultimately be my authority,
Right, right.
based on whether we believed that would not negatively impact the safety and security of our children and parents who visit the school in the dark at night for programs, and security. As I think I mentioned to you in one of our conversations, that we'd had a lot of vandalism
Right.
on the playground, and so the police department recommended that we place this light on Maple School. Or in fact, I believe that the light fixture was always there, but the light bulb was put into the fixture.
I know I've researched that there's two different kinds of lighting. One is the yellow light that you see on the Maple Street at the edge of the parking lot. There's a yellowish
Is
light.
that the street light? Is that,
Yeah, it's
AJ,
a
is
street
that the
light.
street light?
And it's yellowish and has a different effect than the white light does. And it's the pulse rate of the white light that is the real difficulty, and it's shown to be deleterious to melatonin. I don't want to take up much time, but there's a physiological effect. I brought some special. I brought a spotlight to kind of, but I won't persist with that.
So is it my understanding, just to be clear, that you'd also like Mr. Roy to explore the possibility of changing the kind of the light as well?
I don't think it would be necessary. If my idea of what and again, we could probably check with Whiteley Electric about the efficacy and the logistics of the shadow. But as long as because it seems to me that that a shadow that would come between or on the edge of the schoolyard property and my property, that would be sufficient.
Okay.
But
Well, we certainly will ask Mr. Roy to review that and to get back, I think even in anticipation of hearing from you, but if you want to check back, I actually, Superintendent would recommend that that Mr. Weirnez get back in touch with you, and that way,
okay,
is that satisfactory for you?
that's great. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have matters for discussion, starting with subcommittee reports. We have the Finance Subcommittee. Seems
Well,
redundant
we
after
kind
what
of gave that report.
Yeah, we kind of did, didn't we?
I think we want to move to just have the minutes submitted
Right.
from the 3 meetings.
Just, yeah, ask the,
So I ask that the committee accept the minutes for February 16th, 22nd, and March 8th.
done. Terrific. There is no policy review subcommittee update. The policy review committee is still preparing to review the school transportation policy, as well as any other matters that come before it, but at this point there's no new matters to report there. CES update.
There is none yet, but March 30th, I will be attending a meeting, so at our next meeting, I will have something to share with you all.
Thank you. The next would be a student representative update. Alexis, good to see you.
Hello. I know that they're in student council. We're doing a fundraiser to, I forget whether it's like Habitats for Humanity or other charity, but not charity, but organization. We are filling like bags of rice that we're sending to kind of like third world countries, and they feed like a family of 6, and we're raising money to help fill those and do that sort of charity. There's also, there's not much that I can really think of that's going on besides classes are raising money. I know most classes like the 9th, 10th, 11th grade are selling Yankee candles if anyone wants to buy them to help support our classes. That's mostly it. Most people are like gearing up for things such as like prom. I know most of the seniors are talking about college. Can't think of anything right now besides those kind of big annual things.
Heading towards graduation.
Yeah.
And I trust people are still excited about the success of the athletic teams this
Oh
winter.
yes,
and-
definitely. Since the boys basketball went to really far in their season, so that was really
Finals,
great.
yeah, we were very excited about that.
Yeah.
And it's a young team too, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So
There's
more
excite-
years.
There's
ahead of them.
excitement, more excitement to come there.
Definitely.
Thank you, Alexis.
No problem.
Is there any other matter for discussion tonight? Anyone from the committee? Terrific. All right, we'll move to the superintendent's report then. Nancy, Superintendent Follansbee.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to give an update this evening. I think I'd actually been asked to give a little bit of an update on choice and charter and where we stand with that. So you have a couple of documents in your packet. The first one has the title School Choice Students, and it shows you from FY14, which would be 2013-2014, up to this year, 2015-2016, how many students have left our district to go to other districts, and how many students have come into our district from other districts. Also, you can see the districts where our students choice out to, and the ones that are the biggest draw for our students, which is Hampshire Regional and Northampton. So what is probably most important to look at is the change in the number of choice out students between last year and this year. We have 23 fewer students who've choiced out to other districts. And this is noticeable in the districts with the largest numbers of students, again, Hampshire Regional and Northampton. We also have an increase in students choicing into the district. However, this number is determined to some degree by the number of openings we have available. And I think I asked Sue Colby to give you a document that shows you the number of openings that we have in each grade level. The decisions to do this must be made carefully, so there are no additional costs to the district brought on by a need to add more staff, by adding more choice-in students. The ins and outs of students from grade to grade are often the result of students moving into our district or moving to the district they have been choicing into once the family is located to that district. So we have a constant fluctuation of students moving in as choice-in students, finding a home here in Easthampton and becoming our students, or students who have choiced in while they're, or choiced out rather, to another district while their family was looking for a home in that district and then moving out. So again, there's an in and out to this. The next document is, actually, any questions on that? Maybe I should go document by document.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the school choice? I had one observation. If I'm reading this correctly, Nancy, and I don't know if you can project the future, but the number of 12th graders choicing out this year is 17. The number of 11th graders is 8. So it's conceivable that we would see yet, it'll be, depending on the number who choice out at kindergarten, but in addition to the almost $100,000 in savings in the progress from fiscal year 14 to fiscal year 16, there could be that much next year if the number follows that way.
Yes. And I think we are seeing the impact of our new high school on impacting the number of students who are choicing out, because it is such a wonderful place to be, right, Alexis?
Of course.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
Well, and then the challenge that remains is that while the numbers in there's two school districts that really are the substantial. There's 10 students who choice out to go to Hatfield, but we have 2 schools in the 60s and the 70s, and I was wondering if beyond the high school, if there are other things. When we talked through the budget, we talked about making deliberate decisions that would encourage families sort of who are on the bubble to make the decision to stay home and to not choice out. I'm wondering if, not tonight because I didn't ask you in advance, but looking at this data, if in the future we could talk specifically about what we think it is that are the advantages that families see that lead them to choice out for those 2 particular school districts, setting aside the logistical ones that you pointed out, right? In the questionnaire that comes, there's that discussion. I think that it would be really fruitful for us as we think about investing some of this potential savings that comes to the city, if the choice out numbers continue to decline, being able to use some of that money to keep the momentum, the corner that we've turned, and perhaps expand programs that would allow us, because this is the non-increase in tax method to increase revenue for the school system, right? This is news that doesn't raise anyone's taxes, but allows us to do the kinds of changes that Cynthia highlighted before in the report and that you highlighted. So perhaps we can make that an item for a future meeting. I don't know how long it would take to do that analysis, but I know that just speaking for myself, I won't speak for anyone else on the committee, would love to think strategically about how we continue to move those numbers, 88, 84, 79. It would be great to turn that into a 65 and then to a 50, and thinking of the impact it would have on the city's finances.
And we did get some information about that from the survey that we did and that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, but certainly we could pursue more information on that. The next document is about our charter school students. And the news for charter school in terms of the numbers that leave our district for charter school is not as good. And it's true that ever since Hilltown Charter moved into Easthampton, the numbers of our students who are leaving for charter schools, as we predicted might happen, has increased. And you can see that from the chart that the largest number of students, is choicing out, or using charter rather, to go to Hilltown, and you can see that this year in FY16.
I want to just comment. I know folks read the paper. Unfortunately, the Gazette reporter has left, but I will issue here again the same. First, I guess this comes in the category sort of tisk-tisk. I was concerned that in a recent exchange of letters in the Gazette, a letter from a teacher, a public school teacher, on the question of expanding the number of charter schools, there was the script underneath the letter identifying this person who wrote an eloquent and thoughtful letter as a public school teacher. And that's fair, the Gazette can do that. You're giving the reader a little bit more information. But there was then a response from Mark Kennan that only identified him as being from Haydenville. Mark Kennan is the director of the charter school program for the Commonwealth, right? Which if you went to the online version of the Gazette, you'd see they made the correction there. But all of the paper versions that were out and about presented this letter as though it was just coming from another random, community member responding, when in fact he's paid to advocate that. And I would further ask the Gazette, since Mr. Kennan's letter seemed to disagree with some of the facts that had been presented in the discussion, let's have the Gazette do its job. Resolve the matter of the facts. Don't tell us about charter school statistics from across the Commonwealth. Look at these charter schools right here in our valley and tell us if Mr. Kennan's claims in that letter can be corroborated with evidence, or if, as I suspect, he is using information selectively from across the Commonwealth as it suits his argument to make the case for charter schools stronger than it really is. So I apologize for all of you for using up that airtime, but I really think it's time for the Gazette to do its job as a newspaper and inform the public by providing the specific information. We've done our own work here in the community, and it is our sense that the claims that Mr. Kennan made are not accurate if you look in the local school district that we know best. Perhaps if you look at the valley as a whole, his numbers will be corroborated, but I really think it's time, rather than having a constant flow back and forth of these letters, in concert with those, let's get some hard data in there. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Another interesting fact about choice and charter is that there are a number of families who've never even set foot in our schools and have gone directly into another school. And some information from those families is reflected in our surveys too, which I'll get to in a minute. But the third document here is on the costs of charter and choice. And the assessment for students who leave our district goes to the city, unfortunately. The revenue for students who choice into the district goes to the school department. The number of students on this chart is by FTE, which means full-time equivalent. And this is how the state determines the funds that follow students. So using FTEs can account for students who are not in the district for a full year. They might move in partway into the year, or they might move out partway through the year. So the number of students that we record who are coming in for choice, going out for choice, or going out for charter looks different than the FTEs, but we wanted to report that because that's how the money is determined. Costs can vary, again, depending on special ed increments that are also added to the students with IEPs who either move into our school district or move out, choice out. Any questions on that? And again, you can see that our cost for choice out is reducing. So there's a downward trend, but clearly not for charter. And charter costs us approximately $10,000 per student, and choice costs us $5,000 per student. That's the base cost. So let's turn to the survey now. I did ask Sue Colby if she would put a copy of the blank survey in your packet so that you had that in front of you as we're talking about it. And then I had also included the survey with the responses that we've gotten so far. So in February, we mailed the surveys to all Easthampton families who choiced out to another district or sent their children to a charter school, a private school, or homeschooled their students. And we included a stamped envelope so that they could return their survey to us. To date, we have received 59 surveys, which is 20% of the surveys that we sent out, which seems to be a good number. I'm been told by one of my admin assistants that the typical response rate for a direct mail survey is approximately 4%. So the response to our survey has been very good. Some interesting and potentially important information we learned was that the largest number of respondents, 30%, have never attended our schools. And that just is more evidence that backs up what I was just telling you. Some respondents were responding on experiences from many years ago. For an example, there are a number of families who stated that they left when we didn't have full-day kindergarten programs, and that was many, many years ago. So, specific programs mentioned as reasons for leaving included Chinese immersion and programs with concentrations in the arts, dance, and music found in Pioneer Valley Performing Arts. Of those who were dissatisfied, the largest number of responses were, number one, for the condition of our school buildings. So I think we're all very aware of that. And I think that our community is recognizing that we are taking steps to address that. We have our beautiful new high school, and we are now in the pipeline with the School Building Authority for, we are hoping, a pre-K to 8, which would give us new facilities for both elementary and middle school students. Number two was class sizes. And I'm just going to take a moment to speak about class size. We all want appropriate teacher-student ratios for each of our classrooms, and we make every effort to have that appropriate ratio based on research about appropriate and optimal class sizes. We keep our class sizes at the elementary level lower because that's where it's most important to have low class sizes, and somewhat larger at the middle school. That's where class size really has the biggest impact. In the high school, it's a lot of it's dependent on what courses our students are taking. But small class sizes are often generalized to be what is best for instruction, when in fact, too small a class size can have just the opposite effect, limiting opportunities for diversity and working collaboratively in a number of configurations, our students having that ability to do that. And when enrollment decreases and class sizes decrease to very small numbers, it can be difficult to provide the operating budget that allows a school to survive. And unfortunately, this is exactly what's occurring more and more often in Western Massachusetts. We can be pleased that our enrollment numbers haven't gone down yet. There are a number of districts you may be aware of who've had to close schools because the enrollment has dropped and the class sizes have become so small that it's been impossible to maintain the operating expenses for those buildings. Number three was listed as special education services. And I'm not offering this as an excuse, but more as an observation. It is often hard to provide exactly what special education services families want, and they sometimes think that they're going to get those services in other districts. We also have families who choice into our schools for our special education programs, and we've had families tell us that time and time again. So that one it really varies depending on the family and the needs of the students. Greatest strengths were listed as, and I know you've heard this before, our teaching staff. Mentioned time and time again about what a superior teaching staff we have, caring, providing a rigorous curriculum, and I think our accountability levels with the state show the results of the excellent faculty and staff and administrators that we have. One of the strengths that was mentioned that I wanted to report on tonight is efforts to make improvement is listed as a strength. So I believe this is a recognition of the work that has been done by our staff, administration, and school committee members to respond to what our community has defined as important for the education of our students. So I believe that that's being recognized out in our community. Need for improvement, again, condition of buildings was mentioned in a number of comments, and some comments were made not on actual experiences but on perception. So one comment was, well, I've never set foot in our schools, but I understand that class sizes are this number. And so, there are perceptions that continue to feed on themselves, I guess, and feed when when these kinds of statements are made to people who aren't actually in our schools. But I think we're doing a very proactive program in really helping the community understand the strengths of our program here in Easthampton, and I think we're seeing results from that. I did want to read to you, if I can find it. Yes, one comment. I got very long comment on one survey. I'm not going to read all of this to you. I'm going to read the part that I thought was indicative of what I'm talking about. The perceptions are changing. This family had choiced their students out much earlier on because of conditions of the building, some of the things that we've mentioned in the survey already. But this was the last statement. Interestingly, I am pregnant now, and if the changes that have been occurring in the Easthampton School District continue, new improved high school, rating increase at Center Pepin, that's our accountability rating, this one meaning the baby, might attend Easthampton Public Schools. So I thought that that was a very nice message for us to hear. I think that the efforts that so many of us here in the district, again, you as school committee members, our staff and our administration and our families are making a difference in the perception of our schools, which those of us who have been in our schools have known all along that they are excellent places to be educated. Any questions or comments or information that I can perhaps provide you? Thoughts about things that you would like us to pursue? I think Peter's mentioned looking at those two schools where we choice out and see if we can get more specific information about that.
I just want to add, when we talk about, parents not stepping foot in the schools, I know I reached out to you about a particular family looking to make a change, and I reached out to the principals and even you, Superintendent Follansbee, and very open and welcoming, come in. And both of the administrators are happy to sit down and talk with this family about what's important to them. And our schools are open to people coming to take a look at them. And it's great. It's refreshing. And even parents, parents are open to talk about their experiences as well. So yeah. I just wanted to mention that.
And I think that, I would just encourage everyone not to let the age of our facilities be off-putting. I think for those of you whose children are in our schools or have been in our schools, my own children were in our schools probably close to 20 years ago now. The buildings were old at that time, and I came from a community in New York State where the building my children was in was much newer and more modern. And I have to say I was taken aback when I went to Maple School and this was where my daughter was going to go to kindergarten. But once I had my children in the schools, I found out what a wonderful, supportive community it was and how excellent the teachers are. Mm-hmm. And I myself taught in our schools for a number of years, so I can also speak to that firsthand. So again, I would just encourage you to come in, meet us, talk with us, and also know that we're pursuing those beautiful new facilities for our children here in Easthampton.
And I agree with your comments, and we talked earlier about turning the corner. And I think what we have done in the last few years is turned an amazing corner on perception. Mm-hmm. And it's because of, PTOs, groups like, the committee, all the different groups, and all the different awareness as to what we do offer. And come in, if you don't know, please come in. And then they're reaching out, mm-hmm. The open houses. So I think just in a few short years, the perception has really changed the corner.
I wanted to reiterate what you were saying about the buildings as well, because I remember before my son entered kindergarten, I was a little surprised to see what an old school building looks like. But now that my son is in Maple, he doesn't notice what is old about the building. He notices his teachers and his friends and the great time that he has there and all the learning that he accomplishes there. So I think it's important to remember that our expectations as adults for the aesthetics of a building versus what actually matters in the experience of a child in a school. And it's so much more about the people and the learning.
And again, I know I brought this up before, but it's I can't help forget when Mass School Building Authority first came up to inspect Maple Street School, which is the building we're all done, they were just so completely impressed that every inch of Maple is utilized in very creative ways.
And that we
agree.
have kept our buildings up as
And the
as well.
cleanliness, and right, so they made a lot of comments on that, many times.
Yeah, I mean, and my daughter goes to Center. I think having lived in Rome, Italy, where buildings are very old, I think it didn't.
Different
it didn't-
appreciation.
Right, it's a different appreciation for sure. And they're charming. They're charming. And the people inside the buildings, that's, for me, that's what matters. And my child is extremely happy. So we have some great teachers. So.
You know, if you actually read the book, rather than just looking at it at a distance and not picking it up, I still remember the experience that we had sitting in a class in Maple with a wonderful teacher who's still there, and observing a class. And in the course of the time that we were there, a student who was on an IEP was taken out of the room for some special supportive services. And while the student was out, the teacher led the students to an activity. And if I remember correctly, it was related to Valentine's Day, and the kids were sort of identifying their favorite thing about Valentine's Day, and they were filling out this chart, and they came to the name of the student who was out of the room. And I thought, oh, well, they're going to just sort of skip over this. And instead, what was so compelling to me was that the other kids in the room were so devoted to trying to figure out what that boy's answers would be, and how well that they knew him, and that they were going to include him in that process. And I think it spoke to the level of attention and inclusion that student, a special needs student, going back to your comment. And I mean, I saw that and I was like, holy cow. You can't, I'm a teacher, you can't create that. That's not about buildings. That is about an effective teacher who loves her kids, and an effective teacher aide. There are two adults working hard in that room, doing a tremendous job. And it did, they could have been in a brand new multi-million-dollar place, and it wouldn't have made any difference at all. It was about what those folks were doing. So I always love to tell that story, because it remains with me. I had that sort of holy cow kind of moment, like, my son is going to be in this classroom, and he was, and he had a terrific year with that teacher. She was phenomenal and set him on a course of a lot of success in school. I also want to commend you for doing the survey, because I think the answers to the survey, in combination with a strategic plan that we already have endorsed, show us opportunities, again, about where we target money. I will highlight two responses related to the Chinese immersion school, where you have one parent saying, look, I've heard lots of great things, but Chinese immersion is just a very strong alternative, and if you're lucky enough to get a spot in the lottery, it's hard to say no. Can't fault that family for that. It's about the financing of that would be my challenge. But then what was interesting is another parent saying, we're debating at this time whether or not to have our child go to Whitebrook or stay in the Chinese immersion school, a concern about the condition of the building. But for the high school, we wanted to be able to continue Mandarin, even if it is an online class. If that's possible, we'd consider coming back. So here's the advantage of getting this feedback. We might not be able to create that online opportunity right now. We might not have the resources, but it points us in the direction of the kinds of things that we can explore that for this family, I hope in time, but maybe for some other family that's like this. Because I think when you talk about only getting 20% back, for every survey we get, let's imagine there's 4 more people behind each of these answers. And maybe there's 4 more families who, if we adopted some of the programs that they're talking about, it's an investment. So in some cases, it means spending money, but if we save it at $10,000 per student per year, that, spending $5,000 on something that generates $10,000, right? We can all do the cost benefits analysis and see the benefits there. So I think the survey provides a useful picture, but also a foundation for strategic planning going forward. Okay, and thank you very much. I think we have some matters for action, correct? First, some minutes. I think it's the February 9th, we have the minutes for the February 9th work session.
Okay, yes. So we move to approve the minutes from the February 9th, 2016 school committee meeting.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Sue, I abstain on that. Right?
And then also a motion to approve the minutes from the February 22nd, 2016 work session.
Second.
Second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, terrific, thank you. And then we have the school calendar. Right. Oh, there we go. Paper everywhere. There we go. I don't know, Superintendent Follansbee, we're maybe doing this out of Robert's Rules of Order, but is there anything in this? We had looked at this previously. Is there anything here that you'd like to highlight before we consider taking action on them?
Well, just a little bit of explanation. You know, we and leadership team develop the calendar, and then we share it with the union, the EEA members, and get their feedback. We actually shared 2 calendars with them. One that would have required a memorandum of agreement to change the contract because the contract says that they can't start before the last Tuesday in August. And so they also had wanted 3 days for professional development, which we've always had and we've liked, but apparently they weren't ready to do that, to do the MOA and have the 29th, 30th, and 31st. So that's why the 2 days are there. And then the 3rd day is on the 8th of September, so not too far away. And other than that, I think we were in agreement with everything. We try to push it back as far as we can so we're not in school too late in June. And this is the 19th would be our last day if we didn't have any snow days. And I'm guessing that's not going to happen, but at least it still wouldn't be the last week in July. I don't know if you have any questions about that. But we worked very hard on it and got input, and this was what was agreed on, so I feel comfortable with it.
So do we have a motion on adopting this calendar?
Motion to adopt the calendar.
Second.
Great. I just wanted to add one comment. I appreciate the keeping the September date for the first day of school. I know Alexis may have a different perspective on this, but I think everything that we can do to preserve that week that runs up through Memorial Day. I know we do have 2 days, Labor Day, 2 days of classes there, but you know, I'm wearing my summer experience, and as a small business person and thinking of young kids and summer jobs, there's something really important about if we can, striving to keep summer through Labor Day weekend. That there's lots of businesses that operate on a weekly basis, and I know we have a lot of other things to be thinking about when we're making a calendar, and this is the best that we can do. But I urge everyone on the committee to always be aware that if we keep that last week school-free, that last week through Labor Day, we create another week where families can recreate together. We create another week where students can have summer employment and save up money for some of the items that we're about to talk about in the next section here. So this is probably the best that we can do, but you know, I'm an old-fashioned person about this. I just push for the first day of school being the Tuesday after Labor Day, and I hope we can work in that direction in some future years. That said, there's a motion made and seconded. All in favor of adopting this calendar?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we got warrants and payroll.
Yes, okay. So we have quite a few there.
We'll get them all.
Yes, so we'll start with the payroll authorization for an aggregate sum of $450,000. I'm sorry, $450,074.59 for the payroll date of March 3rd, 2016.
So someone seconds.
Second.
Second. Motion made, can I just have, it's easier.
Absolutely.
Motion made and seconded for a payroll authorization in the amount of $450,074.59. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One down.
Motion to approve the accounts payable authorization for the amount of $230,141.46.
A second.
Motion made and seconded for the accounts payable authorization dated March 3rd, 2016, in the amount of $230,141.46. All in favor?
Motion to approve payroll authorization dated March 17th, 2016, in the amount of $462,800.59.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Motion made and seconded in favor of payroll authorization dated St. Patrick's Day, 17th of March 2016, in the amount of $462,800.59. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve the accounts payable authorization dated March 17th, 2016, in the amount of $598,649.99.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the accounts payable authorization dated 3/17/2016 in the amount of $598,649.99. All in favor?
And that is it, I do believe.
Yep.
Yes.
I think we have them all. Just as a reminder for folks at home with the dates here, members of the school committee come in and read these budget requests for those that are where the dates have gone by the date where we're meeting. And we ask questions about them to be sure that they make sense. And then we actually have to sign them by the day that they are approved here. So our action here isn't an ex post facto sort of first time looking at it. We've actually looked at all of this before. Okay? All right, so I think we have a series of out-of-school field trip requests to look at. And there are two, Nancy, I know that we've had this conversation before. I'm sure the mayor is going to wince if I start to talk about trips to Spain and to the Yucatan, but they've all been signed off by the principals, so we're sure that we're not cannibalizing here and
Correct.
overstretching. You know.
No wincing.
Correct.
Okay. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I long for the day when we have the resources to make it possible. I did hear from a neighbor whose child is headed off on one of the trips this year. He was very excited. She worked at 2 local small businesses and earned all the money to go, and that is terrific, and it's great, and I believe in that too. But these are significantly expensive trips. Do any of them involve teachers missing school days? I know that was a question last year, and I couldn't be sure. It didn't look to me like it did this year.
And the only one, I can't remember if I didn't look to see whether the one to Spain, which is an exchange program again, might miss one day.
One day, right. Okay, again, I just want people to know that we're very attentive to the value of this program, that it's worth having a teacher, right, for the students who can't go on the trip. They're working with a sub that day, and I think we need to be mindful of not endorsing something that allows people who can pay $3,000 to continue to have access to the teacher, while the kids who can't don't have it. And so, but again, I defer to Mr. Burke, and I know is it Benoit or Benoit? Benoit, that's what I thought. He's passionate about this, and I think the program this year with students from France was terrific.
Yeah,
right? The exchange was well done. So I just wanted to say that as a preface. Now I'll entertain motions on all of them. Somebody want to make?
Do you want us to make a motion,
Yeah.
Peter?
Please.
I'll make a motion to approve the out-of-state field trip request.
I
Mr.
second.
Benoit.
All right, it's motion made and seconded to approve the field trip to Madrid, Spain, under the direction of Mr. Benoit. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Cindy?
Cindy, yep. Next, there's a trip to I can make a motion, can't I? Motion that we approve the trip, sorry. There's a lot of supporting documents for Mr. Benoit's trip.
Right.
He's got, I think he remembered last year's discussion. He was going to answer all of my questions. I read through this afternoon. They're very well vetted. They have a lot of recommendations. Okay, Mystic Marine Life Aquarium trip. Motion to approve the Mystic Maine Marine Life Aquarium trip on April 8th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye, terrific. And for those who didn't go aren't going to Madrid, they can go to the Yucatan. Motion to approve the out-of-state field trip request to the Yucatan and Mayan Riviera with Miss Mango.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Terrific. And then Whitebrook Middle School, a motion to approve the out-of-state field trip request to Howe Caverns in Howe's Cave, New York, for students in Whitebrook Middle School with Miss Belize.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then we have a request from Mr. Barstow, the technology coordinator for the district, to move items to be declared as surplus and to be recycled. I move that we approve that request.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And then the last one is attached to the updated. So if you're looking at the old, this is a budget transfer request that is for services that previously were contracted out that are now handled internal to the district. And so this means that we're approving an amount that will pay the in-district provider.
Right, so it's just moving it from one line, contracted services, to payroll.
Right, and it's in the amount of 16,900. Are there two or is it one?
There too.
There are two. Sorry, the first one in the amount of 16,940. I move that we approve that.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then the second one, this one involved the purchase of new software system, and so this was, and this is also in support of the special education program. It's interesting that we have this after the earlier discussion about the survey results. This is a strength of the Easthampton School District, right? So I move that we approve the purchase of this new IEP software system and the costs associated with getting it up and running.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded. All. Sorry, correct. The budget transfer request. In the amount of $16,351.13. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody want to make another motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn? Is it seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, folks.
This,